Many thanks for choosing us. Ghana Nurses and Midwives Association says it is giving government 72 hours to relieve the NSS boss of his duty, else they will lay down their tools. Their threats follows an alleged assault on one of their members by the National Service Secretariat boss in the Ashanti region, Alex Opoku-Mensah, at the Menchia Hospital. Alex Opoku-Mensah is reported to have barged into the surgical ward of the Menchia Hospital, where his daughter is currently serving as a house officer, and verbally abused and threatened the nurse, who is said to have chastised his daughter over a wrong prescription. According to eyewitnesses, the medical officer prescribed the wrong dosage for a 2-year-old child with convulsion. The nurse, upon noticing the medical blunder, called on the young doctor to rectify the wrongful medication. The house officer, however, is reported to have taken offense and reported the issue to her father, who later stormed the health facility and angrily insulted for questioning his daughter's prescription. We'll hear from the association shortly, but first, let's listen to the alleged voice recording of Mr. Alex Opoku-Mensah engaged in the hot exchange with the nurse at the Menchia Hospital.
Learn to respect me.
I respect you.
What is what words have I used on it?
I'm
saying that when I...
For what reason? She's a doctor, me from a nurse.
And so...
Daddy, please, I beg.
Oh, yes, are you an equal part? What kind of behavior is that? That's why I asked you, what course did you do in secondary school?
I did science.
Frustrated, very frustrated. I could have brought my daughter from November results to you. What kind of behavior is that? Menchia who brought up? It will get up the patient for. Has she run away from the patient? Has she run away from the patient? Has she run away from the patient?
In what reason?
What kind of behavior is that? I don't know. No. Is she accountable to you? Is she accountable to you? And you talk to that phone, brutally on phone. What kind of behavior is that?
You said what she told you.
And you have exhibited. You have exhibited your behavior.
You told me I envy her.
Yes.
For what reason?
Because you are envy her.
For what reason? I envy her for what reason? Am I not a man?
Oh, you're a doctor. Oh, you're a doctor. Are you a doctor? Is she accountable to you? Learn to be remorseful. Learn to be remorseful. Oh, yeah, who are you? Only the only time I teaching my here.
To question her. Every right to question.
Is she accountable to you?
What did I do wrong? Don't ask me.
Don't use your left on her.
Exactly.
Don't use your left on her. Foolish girl. That's why I told her you envy her. What do you left there? They don't. What bother man? Why should you be doing that? Huh? Sit down.
I want to sit down. I want to listen to you.
I don't know, yes, sir.
People speaking to people with letters.
I mean, who want your color, sir? Stupid idiot. Kevin. I'm very happy you are here. Who want there? Someone needs a phone up or down. Up or down. You are general answer. What are your signs? What are you disappointed in this? Up or down. I see a phone. Who want there? Who want there?
The Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association have since issued a communique calling for the immediate sack of the Ashanti regional boss of the NSS for his indecorous behavior. Failure to do so by government, they say, will result in a strike action. Perpetual Furiampofo is the president of the association.
He had absolutely no right to enter the facility and do what he did, and he is not fit to be a director in the Ashanti region. He should be removed immediately. And as an association, having deliberated on this issue extensively, we have also given timelines. And we have said within 72 hours, we expect the Public Services Commission and government, for that matter, to be removed. And this issue extensively, we have also given timelines. And we have said within 72 hours, we expect the Public Services Commission and government, for that matter, to be removed. And without which, we are going to direct Manifestivities Hospital, where our nurses and midwives are working, to lay down their tools. If we still do not get a response, the whole Ashanti region is going to lay down their tools. And if we don't hear anything, we are going to take it up nationally, the whole nation, because this is an insult to us as nurses and midwives. Look, we are breaking our backs, working in very difficult situations, and we don't need this. We don't need this. The regional director of the National Service Scheme, in the person of Mr. Alex Poku-Mensah, should have known better. As a director, he should have known that for a facility such as this hospital, there is definitely a leader in place, and that is the medical soup. There's also a nurse manager in place. He should have known where to direct his concerns or his complaints, and had no right to press in that way that he did.
Actually might have happened. The Rasta Sasari Donko shares more with us on this.
House officer started his house job on the 1st of November, almost 1 month with the Menchia Hospital as we speak. This issue we are talking about happened on Sunday. You know, he was starting his night cover with the hospital, which ends at 8 a.m. And had informed the ward in charge that because he had wanted to attend to some church activity, he wanted to do the ward rounds early so he can go to church. So it was a church that she kept receiving persistent calls from the nurse in question. And when she responded to the call, the issue was that she had prescribed some IV fluid and paracetamol, which was not available on the night shift. And so, per the system that they were running at the Menchia Government Hospital, it wasn't possible for any other doctor to change the medication. She had to assist them change the medication. And that is why the nurse was calling her to come over to the hospital to make that change. But then she had reported the matter. She said she was not happy with the way the nurse spoke to her on phone. So reported the matter to the father, who stormed the hospital to, I don't know, try to put the nurse in her right position. And so what you hear in the audio there is the father who had stormed the ward and was trying to put her in her right place, according to what happened. Now, what we are learning now is that management has met both parties, both individually and then collectively. They have listened to them both. The doctor in question has apologized to the nurse for her father's behavior. And the management has decided that the nurses are saying they are not happy with her and they cannot work with her. It looks like tensions are high. And so they've asked her to at least stay home in the interim for tempers to die down before she can come back. When they have already spoken with the nurse and tempers have gotten down, she can resume her duties. Okay. So that is where we are at the moment.
Well, efforts to reach Mr. Alex Poku-Mensah for his side of the story have proved futile since morning. We will engage him as and when we're able to establish contact with him. Meanwhile, the development has generated some public interest. A seasoned pharmacist, Kwame Siedu Sapon, for instance, has been sharing some comments on his Facebook wall since the story broke. And those comments are on your screens now, but he joins us via Zoom for more. I'm grateful for your time, Mr. Siedu. How does this whole incident come across to you? That a father had to storm a major hospital to fight a nurse on duty because she had to draw the attention of her daughter who has prescribed an unavailable drug.
Thank you. It's a bit of a tricky one. And I say it's tricky because in our day practice as health professionals, we work in teams. And in that team, the prime concern is the wealth and well-being of the patient and to minimize errors and to increase patient safety. So in so doing, everyone amongst the team is able to question the actions of another team member, be it the team leader or just the newest member on the team. That said, I have occasion to see, especially in Ghana, that these teams can run on a lot of power distance where there is a hierarchy. And this hierarchy can also spill in place where it becomes territorial. I see a lot of this in the scenario that we are envisaging. But the good thing about healthcare is that we have standard operating procedures and management processes. That is where I begin to cringe, because the father had no business interfering in a procedural misunderstanding as to whether the nurse had spoken to the doctor properly or not. More importantly, if he felt that the daughter was being intimidated, as he's insinuating, he suggested processes by which this should be addressed, one of which you go through management. Meanwhile, he, who was suggesting the processes, didn't avail himself to the same processes to try and get redress for the daughter. And for me, that is a clear sign of someone who is inherently power distant and abuses his power and authority. And so I am trying not to look at the internal processes, because at least I can see a nurse who stood her ground, resulting in whatever safeguarding procedures that had to take place. Because the point is, when it comes to medication administration, you are better delaying it if there is confusion than going ahead, because you go ahead and you put the patient at risk. Yeah. And so for a nurse to stand their ground that way, I adapt my hat to that nurse. I cannot speak for the language that was used because I wasn't party to the phone call between the doctor and the nurse. But that can be subject to an internal investigation. What I want redressed now is the fact that I see people posting that he has rendered an unqualified apology on his Facebook page. I've read the apology, and the apology is not good enough because he still doesn't get it, that it wasn't his place to go into that theater. I mean, a theater is a place where serious medical care is provided. To storm in there and disrupt the ambience of the place of the practitioners and the patient is bad enough. And if you are apologizing, you apologize unequivocally and unqualified. But when you try to justify your action and say that it's your behavior that is in question, then I challenge the whole apology and the dynamics. And so I would still, much as I know the Ghana Medical Association, the medical superintendent, the Ghana Health Service, all would have an interest in resolving this, I think the father needs to be brought to book. I mean, I listened to Erastus, and if it's true also that the doctor was going to church when they had to be on duty, that also calls in an ethical and professional dimension on the part of the doctor. So there are so many things that I see coming into play, and I am trying to hold my breath because there are internal processes. Like I said, there are standard operating procedures and there are disciplinary processes that can deal with all these things. But to start with, the father has to be brought to book. He is what we call in healthcare an outsider and a stranger. He had no business going in there.
All right. So, now the midwives and nurses association want him sacked. Is that the way to go?
Well, I think when one is in public office your behavior, mannerisms, language must project a person who is a servant. I worry because this is someone who is in charge of national service, in charge of the youth, who are the builders of tomorrow's Ghana. If he goes out of his way to show this behavior in an environment where he's a stranger, only God can predict how he behaves where he's the authority. And therefore, yes, there is a reason for him to be investigated by his appointing authority, because he has put his position into disrepute. And so if the Ghana Registered Nurses Association are calling for sanctions against him, I would support that. But I cannot say, because again, in all this, I've been referring to standard operating procedures and all that. I'm quite sure in the organization he works as well, there would be procedures to deal with insolence. So I would want those processes to take its course. And if it so be that the insolence is punishable by him losing his job, then so be it. Because he cannot justify his behavior in any way. From what we have heard, he cannot justify the behavior. And so that should be investigated, and that should be subjected to the right rigors of the processes that are required.
I'm grateful for your time. Kwame Sapon Siedo is a pharmacist. He's also a fellow of CDD Ghana. And in the last few minutes, Mr. Alex Mensah has rendered an unqualified apology on his Facebook page. And I'll read excerpts to you. He says, I understand the disappointment and appreciate the inconvenience my action has caused the general public, as well as the nursing fraternity and the Menchia Hospital. This has never been my style, but for a genuine reason to mediate a persistent issue between my daughter and a colleague nurse who I as well consider my daughter. I do apologize for any mishap and assure all there shall not be a repetition of such. I look forward to maintaining a cordial relationship between any affected person. Best regards, Opoku Mensah Alex, National Service Secretariat Director, Ashanti Region. On to other stories. It's been 5 hours and Ghana Fire Service is still grappling to totally put out fire that has destroyed more than 200 shops at Cantonment. Eyewitnesses say the fire started around 4:30 a.m. More than 7 fire tenders have been dispatched to help douse the fire. My colleague Michael Papania Shali, who has been reporting on the situation at Cantonment, says though firefighters have managed to bring the fire under control, there are still pockets of fire and smoke still emanating from parts of the affected market. He joins us live with some updates. Michael, has the fire service been able to extinguish the fire completely?
Aisha, I'll leave that question, the answer to that question, to the fire service themselves. But to paint a picture of what exactly is happening now, it's been close to 8 hours, or 6 to 8 hours since the fire started. And what is left with now is this, empty shops, because people have managed to clear their goods and people continue to remove their items from some of the few shops that were not affected here. So this is the last shop the National Fire Service worked on, the last shop to also catch fire here. But what we understand is that they've managed to bring the fire under control. But these are just the embers, the remaining embers of the fire, but it continues to burn here. Finally, this room here that you see in your shot is a bit dark, but earlier there was a light inside. It contains something that the Ghana National Fire Service found as a surprise. One of their, what they call their fire hydrants here. So there's a fire hydrant that has been built over a challenge the fire service has been complaining over for years now. Let's find out from the National Fire Service, is the fire truly contained? You still see not just smoke, but fire as well. Let me speak to the PRO, National PRO of the Ghana National Fire Service, ACFO, Timothy Osafo Efum, who will explain to us what exactly the situation is now. ACFO, thank you very much for joining us on JN today.
Thank you very much.
So, we've had reports that you responded very late. They've been calling you for 1 hour. How do you respond to that?
That cannot be true. I don't think anybody called us within that period. We rather, when we got here, realized that the fire had been raging for a long time. Now, what is the distance between Cantonment and what do we call it? Accra City Fire Station? That is Makola. So if they had been calling us for 1 hour, why didn't they run and call us? I don't think anybody called us. What happened was that we received the first call at 35 minutes after 4 this morning. And we rushed and got here within 6 minutes. When we got here, we realized the situation was out of control. Therefore, we requested for assistance. And 8 other fire tenders were mobilized to this scene. So I don't think anybody called us and for us to wait. If you should ask them what number they called, there you will see whether they called or they didn't call.
Let's talk about how long did it take you to actually get here? What was your response time?
That is what I'm saying. It took us 6 minutes because from our records, we got here 45 minutes after 4 a.m., which means it's 6 minutes that it took us to get here.
Great. Now, let's talk about the current situation. But before that, the challenges. It wasn't easy trying to douse the fire. At least if you came here around 4 a.m., it's now midday, and I'm now seeing that you have managed to do something. So, what were the challenges in trying to get access to the place?
One is accessibility, because apart from this street that we are standing on, because it was early morning, so it was not occupied. There were no other access to inside of the market itself. And so we had to couple a lot of hoses before we could get to the scene to fight the fire. So I think that is one. And congestion was also another. So these are the 2 factors that impeded smooth firefighting. So
where are we now with the fire?
We are at the very tail end of it. Now we realize that we are now just left with this side. What we are doing, we term it overhaul. So the overhaul means we turn over those items already burnt to ensure that whatever embers are left in there are extinguished completely. We don't want to live here and we'll be called back that there is re-ignition. So that is what we are doing now.
But I see fire there. I mean, is this supposed to be normal?
Yes. You see, that is where they were packing all their goods. And these are materials. So once you've not been able to put water on it, it will continue to smolder. What you are seeing is smoldering. It's not proper flame that you see. So that is why we are doing what we call the overhaul. The overhaul is to turn them over and then put water on it to completely extinguish it.
So you are definitely containing now?
Sure.
Great. Now let's talk about your fire hydrant. We just shown our viewers that you have a fire hydrant here. You had no idea about it. They built over it. How big of a challenge is it? Because I realized that for about 20 minutes now, you've been able to pump water into finishing this particular way. You definitely have to travel between here and wherever you get the water from. I mean, how big of a challenge is that?
Now, I have always been saying that in firefighting, availability of adequate, constant flow of water is about 60% of the job that is done. So if you have water constantly flowing, 60% of the job is already done. The rest, 40%, is for the manpower and the knowledge that we apply. And so if you don't have water to do the work, then it means you have a deficit. You are starting from negative 60. You are doing 160% job before you can be able to complete. So that is how difficult it was.
But how challenging is this to find that people continue to build over your hydrants?
I am surprised because this is an area that belongs to the city authorities. And so I am surprised why a building has been put on a fire hydrant. And you see, we were not even aware. It is they themselves, the market women, who came forward and told us that you have a fire hydrant here. Only for us to discover that this is the situation. And we are not being fair to ourselves. How can a developer develop on a hydrant? that same thing that is supposed to protect you, you have built on it. Supposing that hydrant was available, did you know how quickly we could have finished with the job?
You tell me, how much would it have helped if you had discovered this hydrant earlier?
Now, what it means is that we will not be shuffling and going to look for water. We will just couple our hoses to it and get water directly into the fire tenders to fight the fire. That is how simple it will have been for us. But this one, because it was blocked, we have to travel to far distances and get the water, come back before we continue the firefighting.
I'll come back to you. Let me thank you very much. So that's ACFO Timothy Osafo Efum giving us an update of the fire situation in Cantonment. I am told that they are just at the tail end of making sure that they are completely doused this fire here. But for the shop attendants, they continue to count their losses. Some of them have lost hundreds of millions of Ghana cedis owing to this particular inferno. Aisha, back to you in the studio.
Vania Shale is our man on the ground. We'll definitely bring you more on this in our subsequent bulletins. But when the Livelihood Empowerment Against Poverty was launched in 2008, it was the news 89-year-old James Akron had yearned for years. It is his source of support for food and medicine. However, delays in payments and the hike in inflation have compounded his struggles to survive in the harsh economy. The Living Standards team met him at his Jamestown home to hear his story.
Fancy, since May, nothing. How can I depend on it? At my age, why are you going to work and then? And what do I expect help from? Living conditions is very, very important. So at the same time, buying medicines, especially my age, became problems, medicine and health. That is why I told you, small money that has been coming to me, I have to save it. So when they say, leap money comes, thanks to the Almighty.
89-year-old Akron James Tete on the Livelihood Empowerment Against Poverty LEAP allowances to survive. Because he does not receive any pension, the LEAP grant has brought him a lot of relief. But in the last 5 months, his allowance has not reached him. With Ghana's economy in shambles as a result of high inflation, Mr. Akron says the delay in receiving his grant is affecting him.
At the moment, I'm the head of the family of the whole Akron family. That is so I'm saddled with problems, apart from living condition. Once you become a head of a family, it's a great responsibility.
He wonders why government would delay such an important grant to vulnerable persons like him. So he now solely banks his hope on the benevolence of family members and friends to sustain him.
It's been 6 months, right?
Nothing.
How are you managing?
Well, you know, I have some small support from my children. You know, they are also grown up to their this thing, responsibilities and whatnot. I've got children, also grandchildren and whatnot. So I don't depend on them.
So
and I don't want to do.
Who do you depend on?
And that is why I get small things from the children. My daughter, when she said, "Oh, Daddy, take this one."
James is the head of the Akron family, but can hardly fulfill his responsibilities because of his financial difficulties. His life now is limited to his immediate surrounding because of his failing eyesight. He shares some good old memories.
You were a boxer too. Oh, wow. And you were a farmer here?
When we went to the everything.
Take a break on Joy News today. When we return, we'll bring you the very latest coming from the world of business.
And it's time to do business here on Joy News today with me, Beverly. Boom to our first story: high lending rates, lack of reliable markets, and inadequate startup capital, among other things, are what entrepreneurs face when starting up a business. These obstructions discourage the youth from starting their own businesses. Now, to lessen the challenge, the Confederation of Young Entrepreneurs Ghana encourages young people to form partnerships in starting their own business. Here's a report.
Number of businesses in Ghana owned by foreigners. The few owned by Ghanaians are saddled with so many problems, resulting in their collapse or poor performance compared to the foreign business. According to the Confederation of Young Entrepreneurs Ghana, one way to change the narrative is by partnering with themselves when starting a new business. Theophilus Teria, a legal practitioner, explains why.
The shareholders and the company are two distinct entities. They are two distinct. The mere fact that I've invested in the business doesn't mean that I'm the company. The company in itself has the capacity to enter into a new contract. It can own assets, it can do business, it can do anything it wants. That company, this one offers signal protection. The second bit is that it allows you to be a sole shareholder. If you want to do it with other people, you're entitled to do so. So it's quite easy to use this one to get a bank loan, get access to credit.
Theophilus Teria added that government should put in more efforts to empower the youth in starting their business.
Most of the youth, when you talk to them about why they don't do business, they'll tell you, we don't have the money. The government, in its own wisdom, has the venture capital that that invest in businesses through certain funds in Ghana that support SMEs. Some of these funds support startups. Some of these funds would also support all advanced stage businesses, and that is not enough. So my view is that the government should increase ways of supporting businesses, not just in the area of just giving tax incentives, but there should be some financial support or for certain priority areas, especially for the youth.
Yemi Adesina, the founder of Boyd Agro Allied Limited, is unhappy that the educational system trains the youth to be employees rather than being employers. He's calling for a change.
I think in Africa, and I think it's British education as a whole for we that are Commonwealth, the way we are taught, we are trained to be an employee. So you have many engineers. During our independent day, we have very few engineers. Our road are not good. Right now, we have many engineers, yet our roads are still not good. Why? Because they have the knowledge. They've been trained to be an engineer, and they believe an engineer is supposed to put the hand in the pocket and wear a shirt and tie and go to work and tell other people how to do work.
The group urges the youth to be ambitious and master their craft. Prince Owusu Ansen's report read.
Away from that, one of Ghana's leading insurance firms, Sun Life Insurance Ghana, has expressed its continuous support towards enhancing insurance coverage in the country. According to the firm, it will continue to provide tailor-made insurance products to meet the demands of both existing and prospective clients. Chief Executive Teria Ben Ahmed, speaking to Joy Business at the launch of its new product, Family Love Plan, said its newest products will help improve insurance penetration in Ghana.
The Family Love Plan has 3 distinct packages, which include Inclusive Love, Classic Love, and Prestige Love, and they have no differentiation in the amount of cover a customer can purchase. Speaking to Joy Business on the sidelines of the launch of the new product, Teria Ben Ahmed expressed optimism. Its newest product, Family Love Plan, will in a way help improve insurance coverage in Ghana.
Sanlam was going to assist the insurance market, improve insurance penetration in Ghana, and this is exactly what we've started doing. So to be able to improve penetration, penetration is a measure of the insurance market contribution to the GDP of the country. And so how much revenue has the insurance market generated compared to GDP? That's penetration. And then coverage will look at how many individuals and companies have access to insurance. So what we have done today, which is, from where I sit, the best funeral solution you can have in this country, is providing access to insurance. It's enabling every Ghanaian to show love to his family. And therefore, penetration in terms of insurance coverage under funeral insurance in the market is going to improve.
On his part, Executive Distribution Support Salam Pan-African Life, Gavin Downward, was upbeat about a transformation in the insurance industry.
The business here is going to be able to increase that penetration and grow the economy, but then also grow the company. As Sanlam, it's our ambition to, across the various territories that we operate in on the African continent, to either be the number one or the number two player in the markets.
We talk some sports now on JoyNews today, and my name is Abigail Senator. So straight to Doha, Qatar, where the Black Stars have ramped up effort as they prepare to face Uruguay in that weighty encounter later on Friday. Joy Sports' Mukhtar Nabil Abdullah watched the team train earlier this morning and has filed this report.
It is the recovery training session of the Black Stars. After that, energy sapping 101 minutes of football against South Korea. That ended in a 3-2 victory for Ghana. The senior national team had opened its campaign with a defeat, and it was extremely important that they got all maximum points when they came up against Song's South Korea. Otoado and his men are back getting ready for that big game against Uruguay on Friday. Most of the players who did not start and had limited minutes as well, there are those who are here, whilst those who started the game also had a separate session recovering for that game against Uruguay. Uruguay and Ghana have got a certain history. About 12 years ago, Ghana, Africa, the black race was denied an opportunity of making it to the semi-final of a FIFA World Cup. And people actually believe that this contest that's going to happen on Friday should be a revenge for Ghana. But would it be a revenge? It would only be a revenge to many Ghanaians if it denies Uruguay an opportunity of qualifying to the next phase of the FIFA World Cup. The boys are getting ready. They will have 2 more training sessions before that game against Uruguay on Friday. And we'll keep tabs with what is happening here at the Aspire Park 1, where the Black Stars has been assigned to use for their training for the FIFA World Cup. So yeah, 5 of the players who started the game had a separate training session. The other 7, the other 6 players are not here yet, but we keep looking out for what would happen in the next couple of minutes as they continue their training session. Like I mentioned, we'll keep on following the Black Stars, and we'll bring you every single update you need to know about the team and its preparations for that all-important game against Uruguay on Friday. Mukhtar Nabil Abdullah reporting.
Well, back home, former Ghana Udinese celebrity professionals and Inter Milan midfielder Sule Ali Muntari has announced his retirement from professional football at the age of 38. We'll get you more of that story in subsequent bulletins. My name is Abigail Senator. We thank you for staying with us.
Time now to check out what's making headlines. And 3 stowaways have been found sitting on the rudder of a ship after it completed an 11-day voyage from Nigeria. Spanish authorities say a photo shared by the Coast Guard shows the men sitting on the rudder at the oil tanker's helm, their feet less than a meter away from the water. They were taken to hospital at the tanker's destination in Gran Canaria and treated for moderate dehydration. It's unclear if they spent the entire journey perched on the rudder. That does it for World News. Up next is Showbiz with Becky.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Showbiz here on JoyNews. And our rapper Manifest has announced his annual concert dubbed Manifestivities will come off this December. The rapper at the launch of the 2022 event promised the fans the ultimate music experience come 18th of next month. He spoke to my colleague Nicolette Yamwa.
Manifestivities is definitely coming bigger and better this year. Taking last year off was important because it was a difficult time for all of us in the world. We're coming back to Bukom Arena. We're coming back big. It's going to be even better work curated. We are fortunate enough to have Aisha on board again, and then other supporters as well. So people should expect the most quality experience you have this season. The criteria for selecting, I like how you put it, the Rising Star was 5 things. First, content. Second, delivery, skill level, presence, and then the je ne sais quoi. And a lot of them take high on this. I mean, honestly, I think I mentioned it earlier, I would have loved to have about 10 of them on the stage because in terms of quality of entries, there were so many. So this is not to say that somebody's better, but in just having to choose somebody, we had to choose Kokusi because I think his entry made such an impact, in terms of looking at the criteria. But there were so many talented people. Big up.
Well, on that note, we end Showbiz here on JoyNews today. Tomorrow we'll be back for more exciting Showbiz news.
Definitely. Becky, you're looking beautiful in your yellow. And that's how we wrap up the bulletin this afternoon. My name is Aisha Ibrahim. Log on to myjoyonline.com. There's more of the news and updates of all the developing stories to enjoy the rest of our programs.